So we began discussing that every person has two souls, and we operate on two levels of consciousness. One is the animal consciousness, the nefesh behamit, and one is the divine or transcendental consciousness, the nefesh Elokit. As a result of this, we don't have one personality, so to speak. We have minimum two personalities. Some of us have more than two personalities, but minimum two personalities. What do we mean, two personalities? Two sources of life, two batteries, two very different visions of life. And they make us tick in different ways. In other words, when you're having thoughts, you can identify and ask a question. Are these thoughts coming from your nefesh behamit or coming from your nefesh Elokit? When you're behaving in a certain way, you could look in the mirror and say, is this a behavior of the nefesh behamit or is this a behavior of the nefesh Elokit? You're having a particular attitude or a particular emotion, whether it's an emotion of fear or an emotion of hate or an emotion of jealousy. And once you learn this process and you learn about these two souls, you could begin to identify and say, this is my nefesh behamit now on display in its full grandeur, in its full ferocious animal and beastly power, fully on display.
Even you identify it's still yours. What do you do after that? Meaning you're still doing it. It's still your soul.
Yeah, but all processes of change begin with identification. If I don't identify, then I live in a confusion. Haksil b'choshech chaylech. The first process is to identify. Even depression, yeah.
Yeah, but once you know it comes from the nefesh behamit, it's still.
The very identification that it comes from the nefesh behamit, number one, it tells you that it's not all of you. It's not the complete description of who you are. Number one. In other words, there's a deeper self that I still have to get to. That's a very empowering idea. So even though I have this terrible anxiety or terrible depression or terrible envy, right, or hate or anger or shame or whatever it may be, these attitudes or these emotions or this craving, a crazy taiva for something, I could say, yeah, this is my nefesh behamit on display. It's not all of me. This is not the 100% totality of who I am. That's number one. Number two, even deeper and equally important, is I don't have to judge it. That may be equally significant. Number one, it's not all of me. And number two, I could also let it be. I don't have to judge it. I'm afraid that if this is all of me, so this is who I am, really, that's it? So then paradoxically, I become more obsessed with it. When I say, yes, this is a human being has an animal consciousness, and you know what? Animals get very scared. Animals get very, very scared, you know? You don't give your dog what it wants. It gets very, very anxious. And the dog has a very small, narrow vision of what it wants. It's very clear. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what's happening right now.
Your dog in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, you remember? Yeah. You know, it has a very. This is what I need right now, and if not, life is over. So the ability for me to be able to say, this is my nefesh behamit, I don't have to judge it. Meaning, I don't have to. What do I mean? I have to judge. Not have to judge doesn't mean I have to do everything it says. No. But it means, okay, this is that voice in me, and it's part of what it is to be a human being.
Also, once you identify it, you can decide to act according to the nefesh.
That's number 3. That's point 3. Point 3 is, once you identify, now you can ask a question. Which self do you want should sit at the steering wheel? Which self do you want should rule your life, should dominate, should make the decisions? That's what you mean. You can make that distinction.
But even before you get there, just knowing that you have, that's tremendously comforting and empowering. Knowing that it doesn't define you is this tremendous chizuk in and of itself.
Point 1, yeah. That doesn't define you exclusively. Yeah.